So UFC Fight Night Mexico City takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card and give my prediction and breakdown of how the fights will go and who I think will win. And one thing I want to address real quickly, this is in Mexico City, so the elevation is going to be extremely high, so we might see some fighters gassing out that don't normally gas out, so we might just have a pretty shit card on our hands and some disgusting fights might happen, but you know what? Maybe it still will be a good card at the end of the day. But let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right into these full card predictions. Starting off with, we have Muhammed Naimov versus Erik Silva. I don't know why this even got made. Erik Silva is 36 years of age. He lost his UFC debut to TJ Brown. Yeah, this guy isn't good. He's a little bit explosive in the first round, like he did KO the guy in the Contender Series pretty quickly. I think he took him down and then just ground and pounded him out. He has some level of ability, I guess. He's somewhat decent, but do I think he's going to beat Muhammad Naimov, who just beat Nathaniel Wood, and then before that he beat Jamie Malarkey? Naimov is experienced at this point. He's good. He has good takedowns. He's powerful in the first round as well. Maybe he might gas out in the later rounds because he was gassing out against Nathaniel Wood for a little bit. But I think Naimov overall is just way more talented than a 36-year-old Erik Silva. I just can't not pick Naimov. I think he wins this by second round TKO. It's just like almost a given at this point. Erik Silva is 36 years old. He really shouldn't even be in the UFC, if I'm being honest with you. And I don't know why Naimov is the guy he's fighting in the first place. Naimov, at this point, deserves a near-the-ranking level fighter, and Erik Silva deserves a bottom-of-the-barrel level fighter. But you know what? The UFC made this matchup. I think there were some issues with Naimov and getting an opponent, so it is what it is. Naimov gets an easy paycheck for this one. Moving up the card, we have Victor Altimarano versus Felipe dos Santos. Altimarano is ass. He's really shit. I don't think he's good at all. When I watched his fight versus Vinicius Salvador, that was an absolute terrible classic of awful striking, of awful fighting in general. I don't think Altimarano is good in the slightest. And Felipe dos Santos, he's a little Oliveira, I guess. And even though he did lose to Manuel Cap, he looked competitive. You know, he looked like he was good and like he was tough. He got knocked down a few times by Manuel Cap. He showed a good chin and good technical ability. And I don't think Altimarano has any of that whatsoever. Altimarano has some takedowns, but it's like, what really does Altimarano do well? I can't even like give you what he does well, man. I think he's just so bad at fighting. And you know what? Felipe dos Santos is also 23 years of age. He's got to be improving in his game at this point. He's got to be getting better. I don't think Altimarano chins him or really takes him down like that. I think he has good scrambles as well. And Altimarano is also 33 years of age. Not getting any better. I don't see him improving since he beat Vinicius Salvador in a fucking snooze fest. Like, I genuinely cannot get that fight out of my head. That fight was not even a bad fight, but it was so sloppy that it made it a bad fight. I couldn't watch that shit. I was cringing visibly the entire time watching Altimarano just throw the most weird, untechnical hooks I've ever seen, and watching a cross-eyed Vinicius Salvador try to be somewhat technical against Altimarano. It was so unskilled. It was so bad. I can't pick Altimarano anymore unless he does something amazing and just improves out of fucking nowhere. So I'm taking Felipe dos Santos to win this fight, probably by first round TKO. I think he's tough. I think he's improving. He's young. Shoot the box, great gym to train at. I think he'll be able to land good shots on the chin of Altimarano and probably TKO him in the first round. Moving on up the card, we have Luis Rodriguez versus Dennis Bondar. Another shit fighter. Luis Rodriguez is trash. He's garbage. He's awful. And Dennis Bondar isn't anything amazing as well, but he's at least shown to be somewhat decent. I know he was getting pretty much whooped by Carlos Hernandez and then got finished awfully. I mean, an awful, like, he took like, it was a late stoppage. He took like 10 unanswered elbows. This dude has severe brain damage probably from that finish, but Dennis Bondar at least looks capable on the feet. And when I go back and I watch Luis Rodriguez's fights, it's trash. It's just so bad. I mean, his last fight, he fought an 11-11 guy, and he won by ankle injury. The guy hurt his ankle. I just simply don't like some of these fighters on the card, man. They don't have any real skill. Now, maybe an argument can be made for Rodriguez here. He is 24 years of age. Last time he fought was 9 months ago, so maybe he has improved since then. But I just can't base a prediction off how I think somebody has improved in 9 months. I'm taking Dennis Bondar probably by decision here. Bondar is at least somewhat decent. When he fought Carlos Hernandez, he at least gave him a scrap, and Hernandez is pretty decent. It's whatever. Dennis Bondar probably wins by outskilling Luis Rodriguez throughout 3 rounds. Moving on up the card, we have Claudio Puelles versus Ziam. Listen, Claudio Puelles is not as bad as we think he is. I don't rate him in the slightest. I think he's trash at fighting. I think his striking ability is completely awful, just abysmal. When he fought Dan Hooker, that was an embarrassment of the sport. Claudio Puelles is basically this Kron Gracie, this Ryan Hall level kind of jiu-jitsu guy who doesn't have much on the feet but has good submissions off of his back. And the only way he beats Ziam in this is if somehow he can get him on the ground and submit him. And Ziam did lose to Terrence McKinney by submission, but Terrence McKinney is athletic, he's fast-twitching in the first round, he has good grappling, and I just don't think Claudio Puelles, I don't think he's as athletic as Terrence McKinney to just quickly go out for Ziam, shoot a double leg, get him down to the ground, and get a rear naked choke. I think if Claudio Puelles gets down for Ziam, he has to find a way by, I guess, clenching against the cage and getting a trip maybe. He has to find other means to get down for Ziam, and I think Ziam has improved pretty much throughout his career so far. Like, he looks like he is improving at a good rate. He trains at Kill Cliff MMA, which is a good gym. I just think he'll be more than prepared to defend takedowns from Puelles. The only way I see Ziam getting taken down is if he goes for like a body kick, slips, falls on his ass, then Puelles jumps on him and gets a knee bar or some shit like that. But Claudio Puelles is actually not that awful of a fighter. Like, he did beat Jordan Levitt, which is not a terrible win to have in the UFC. He did beat Chris Gucci-Smacker, which sounds awful, but it's not the worst win to ever have in the UFC. Beat Clay Guida. I mean, like, he's beating some veterans. Like, the UFC was trying to push him at one point. He's not an awful, terrible fighter. Like, he can submit people, and he is good on the ground. But can he get Ziam on the ground? My answer is no, and I don't see Ziam putting him out either. I think Ziam wins this by decision. Puelles is not that bad, but I think Ziam will be better prepared, and I think he'll be able to pick at Puelles at range, who has no striking on the feet whatsoever. Moving on up the card, we have Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Lacerda. Lacerda should not even be in the UFC. Get this guy out of here. I'm looking at his topology profile right now. This dude is a draw against Edgar Chairez, which he should have gotten submitted, by the way. Then he's lost 4 in a row since that. He lost to CJ Vergara by TKO. He lost to Victor Altimarano, who I just told you how ass he was. Lost to him by KO TKO. Lost to Francisco Figueiredo, the other Figueiredo. Lost to him by knee bar because he has no IQ and just rolled into a knee bar. And lost to Jeff Molina by KO TKO. So Lacerda shouldn't even be in the UFC. He is a bit explosive in the first round, which I guess is something to his credit, but Chairez, I don't think he's that good either, but he's at least better than Daniel Lacerda, who should not even be in the UFC. He literally faked a premature stoppage so that he could get another chance at Edgar Chairez. I don't see him winning this fight whatsoever. Lacerda needs to be cut, needs to retire from fighting in general. He's just simply not that good. I'm taking Edgar Chairez by first round KO TKO. There's just no way he loses to Lacerda. Lacerda is straight up ass cheeks, man. I don't want to sit here and call fighters trash all the time, but man, when I see trash fighters, I have to call it out, bro, and he is one of them for sure. Moving on up the card, we have Jesus Aguilar versus Mateus Mendonca. I don't know. I'm taking Mateus Mendonca here. I just think he's, decent. Like, he had an IQ issue. Like, he was doing some dumb shit against Nate Maness, just constantly going for leg locks and knee bars while being on bottom and getting ground and pounded. Like, he isn't really an awful fighter, though. Like, I mean, Javid Basharat, when you watch that fight back, like, he didn't look terrible. Now, did he get outskilled? Was he the lesser opponent against Basharat? For sure, but he at least had some substance to him. While Jesus Aguilar, he KO'd Shannon Ross. Welcome to the club. Everybody ever has KO'd Shannon Ross. Shannon Ross literally has no chin whatsoever. So I don't even rate that win from Jesus Aguilar. I don't think he beats Mendonca, who again is somewhat decent in my opinion. I think Mendonca should get this one done. He's a favorite, 150, slight favorite here. I just don't like how the odds makers are probably not the odds maker. I think the people on Topology are picking Aguilar because he has a KO on his record and Mendoza's on a 2-fight losing streak. I just can't put any stock into Jesus Aguilar. I think Mendoza gets this one done by decision. I'm taking him officially by 29-28, probably wins the last 2 rounds. Maybe the first, maybe he wins by all 3. I don't know, but I'm taking Mendoza here. Who cares? They're both kind of mid fighters, let's be honest. But moving on up the card, we have Christian Quinonez. I always fuck up his name. Christian Quinonez versus Raoni Barcelos. Now, Christian Quinonez, it seems like he has an IQ issue. When he fought Kyung Ho Kang, he rocked Kyung Ho Kang and then went in for a finish, then got pretty much finished after that. He rushed in, and when he was on bottom, it seemed like he just didn't have the ability to know where his neck is at, and he just got choked out. Like, he just pretty much gave Kyung Ho Kang the rear naked choke. And that really does worry me when you're fighting a guy like Raoni Barcelos, who is a veteran of the sport. Like, he's been in the UFC for quite a while now, and even though he is not looking good anymore, like he's 1-4 in his last 5, losing to Kyler Phillips, losing to Umar Nurmagomedov, losing to Victor Henry, losing to Timur Valiev, those guys aren't scrubs. Those guys aren't bad in the UFC. And I think Raoni Barcelos can be veteran enough to get this one over Christian Quinonez. But what does really worry me, though, is that maybe Christian Quinonez can be this new young buck, and Raoni Barcelos is just too old now, 36 years of age. Maybe he might just get chinned by Quinonez, who does have, I guess, some level of power in his hands. But you know what? Screw it. I'm taking Quinonez here. I'm switching my pick. Maybe Raoni Barcelos is just over the hill. This might come back to screw me over. Maybe Barcelos just survives the first round, then just pieces up Quinonez on the feet, and then just wins the fight outright by decision. That's definitely a possibility here, but I just feel like it's a gut feeling that I have that Quinonez is going to chin Barcelos in the first round, and I think I'll take him to do that. I think Barcelos might be over the hill just a little bit too much, and Quinonez is probably that new young buck in the yard, that new dude, 27 years of age. Maybe he can improve since he lost to Kyung Ho Kang 8 months ago. He's fighting in Mexico. He'll be more amped up to get a first round TKO. And I think him beating Barcelos will be a good win for him. I think he'll be ready for it. So I'm taking Quinonez to win by first round TKO, KO, whatever you want to say. But moving on up the card, we have Manuel Torres versus Chris Duncan. Now, I don't really like Chris Duncan that much, but I think he's going to win. It's a really weird prediction. I can't really justify it too much. Manuel Torres probably should KO Chris Duncan here. But I have this really weird, iffy feeling that Chris Duncan's probably going to win this fight. He's a big dude for lightweight. And to be fair, so is Manuel Torres, but there's something about him and the way he strikes that I just don't like. And the same can be said for Chris Duncan. Like, he is extremely slow on the feet, and he just isn't the most technical guy I've ever seen, but I feel like he's just tough. I think he'll be able to tough it out against Manuel Torres. And also, this being an elevation, maybe Torres might go for a finish too early and Duncan survives. Then maybe it's Duncan winning by a 29-28 decision after surviving the first round. I just don't like the way Manuel Torres throws strikes. He is powerful. He is athletic. He is freaky fast in the first round. He has a nasty elbow KO against Nicolas Monta. He also KO'd Frank Camacho, but not the greatest one of all time. But if there is one thing that I am worried about for Chris Duncan, is maybe his chin. So, like, picking Torres by first round KO, not a bad pick. It makes sense. Duncan has not looked too good in his most recent fights against Ashmuz, who I think he broke his arm in the first round and then still won a decision. The Omar Morales fight wasn't that impressive either. And then on the Contender Series, he made a comeback KO against Charlie Campbell. Like, Chris Duncan can be rocked, he can be hurt, and he can be dropped. But I just don't know if Torres is going to be able to put him away. Like, he probably can. I don't know. I'm going with a gut feeling here. I think Duncan's going to win by decision. I think he'll last the first round. He'll survive the first round is what I mean to say. And then I think we're going to see Torres gas because of the elevation. And we're going to see Duncan probably just outpoint him with a terrible, boring fight and win by decision, 29-28, after surviving the first round. But moving on up the card again, we have Yazmin Jauregui versus Sam Hughes. I don't really care. I'm taking Yazmin Jauregui here. She has talent. Like, at one point, we thought she was going to be amazing and be this next prospect at strawweight. Unluckily, she got finished by Denise Gomez. But you know what? Denise Gomez has power, and Sam Hughes has none of that. Sam Hughes is not really that good to me. I don't find her particularly interesting. I don't find her talented. And Yazmin Jauregui, at some point, even though she did lose to Denise Gomez, she at least had some hype around her that she could be a decent women's fighter. And when it comes to the eye test, she just looks better than Sam Hughes. So I'm taking Yazmin Jauregui here, probably by decision. It's a women's fight. They're always decisions. It is what it is. But moving up the card, we have Raul Rosas Jr. versus Ricky Turcios. Turcios has really disappointed me in his last few fights, man. I just can't pick him here. I mean, if you're winning a split decision over Kevin Natividad, there's an issue. When he fought Ayman Sahabi, dude looked like a weirdo on the octagon, man. I don't care about his whatever his style is, where he wants to scream a lot and just he has this like warrior background. I don't know what it is. It's some term for it, but he just really disappoints me overall. And I'm surprised he's even fighting. Wasn't he supposed to retire? I don't know. Like, I think he was retiring at some point, which just screams stinky to me. I'm not going to pick him here. And Raul Rosas Jr., he's young. Like, he did lose to Christian Rodriguez, but that guy missed weight. He missed weight by 5 pounds. He also beat Cameron Simon, and he missed weight in that. So Christian Rodriguez missing weight by 5 pounds, winning these prospects. I don't take that loss too much into account. Maybe we can't say Rosas Jr. is the next big thing, the next big young UFC star, but losing to Christian Rodriguez when he missed weight by 5 pounds isn't the worst loss to ever have in the UFC. And I think being 19 years of age, there's something for him to improve on. Turcios isn't that bad, but I just don't like his most recent performances, and I can't bring myself to pick him to beat Raul Rosas Jr. So I'm going to take Raul Rosas Jr. to win this by decision. I think he'll have good cardio enough to keep the pressure on Turcios to really push him backwards because he is a really aggressive fighter. And Turcios to me seems like he's scared to throw punches sometimes and he's just trying to scream at you and intimidate you. I don't think that's going to work against Raul Rosas Jr. So I can see Rosas Jr. just pushing him back, landing shots on him, going for takedowns, a lot of wrestling scrambles. And Rosas Jr. has shown us that he has a good level of cardio, so I think he'll be fine throughout the 3 rounds. And I think he'll be able to outpace Ricky Turcios, who I think is not a fighter anymore. But we move on up the card again to Daniel Zellhuber versus Francisco Prado. I'm taking Zellhuber here. Both of these guys don't really impress me that much, right? Like Zellhuber, like he's good, but he got outpointed by Trey Ogden, which isn't that bad, honestly. But when I think about this fight, I think it's just a really bad mismatch for Prado. He's more of not a smaller guy, but definitely height-wise smaller than Daniel Zellhuber. But just when it comes to Francisco Prado, this is kind of a bad style matchup for him. Prado's more of a power puncher, more of an inside kind of guy wanting to land big hooks on you. And Zellhuber's more of the Pikachu range kind of guy. And when I look at the reach of Zellhuber versus Prado, dude, Zellhuber has a 77-inch reach compared to Prado's 69-inch reach. I just don't like that for a guy who's trying to get on the inside a lot. I think he might get tagged a lot in the moments outside of that. I think at one point, I forget which fight it was, Zellhuber did get hurt at one point. I forget which fight it was exactly. I don't remember top of my head, but so maybe Prado can chin him, but I think the range is going to be too tough for him. I think Prado's also too young a little bit. Can he improve his game? For sure, but I think he's too young to figure out a guy like Zellhuber, who is very rangy on the feet, who will throw a lot of jabs, a lot of kicks as well. I just simply don't like this matchup for Prado, so I'm taking Daniel Zellhuber by decision, probably 30-27. I think he'll be able to outpoint Prado throughout the 3 rounds, whose finishing ability can be kind of questionable. Like, he hurt Ottoman Zaitar on numerous occasions, and it felt like it was tough for him to put him away. Like, I felt like he had a really tough time trying to put away a Zaitar, which if he does hurt Zellhuber at one point, can he actually put him away and finish him off? Maybe not. Maybe Zellhuber can survive that and then come back and also win the other rounds as well. So I'm taking Zellhuber again by decision, 29-28. Maybe 30-27. Prado might have some success on the inside, but I think overall he will get outpointed. Moving on up the card to the co-main event, we have Yair Rodriguez versus Brian Ortega. Listen, I don't care. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't this random fluke injury that happened to Ortega. He was getting boxed up. He was getting 1-2'd on the face, getting his chin spun around, getting fucked up by Yair Rodriguez. Then he got put into an armbar and submitted by Yair Rodriguez. Yair is just better. He was showing Ortega just levels, man. I don't think Ortega is really, like, Ortega's good, obviously, but I don't think he is as good as Yair Rodriguez, who has been at least active since he lost, or since he technically beat Brian Ortega. Like, since these two first fought each other, Yair has fought Josh Emmett, beat him by triangle, and he got the interim belt. Then he lost to Volkanovski. Like, Yair has at least been active in the meantime since they last fought each other, whereas Brian Ortega hasn't fought since he last fought Yair Rodriguez, which was a year and 7 months ago. Dude hasn't fought in a year and a half. I just don't like this matchup. I think Ortega will be slow. I think he'll be rusty. I think he'll get his legs chewed apart. I think he'll get 1-2 down the pipe on the chin again like he did in the first matchup. I just overall think we're going to see a similar fight to the first one, and we're going to see Yair Rodriguez just completely tool up and fuck up Ortega and probably win the majority of the rounds here. Now, again, this is at elevation, but that can be the X factor in this. I don't know. Maybe Ortega can make a comeback in the later rounds if Yair gasses. Because one thing about Yair in his past fights, he did have a bit of a cardio issue. He kind of fixed that against Max Holloway. So maybe we might see an Yair make a comeback and he might gas out. But I just can't bet on that. I think he fixed his cardio issue. And I think skill for skill, he is better than Ortega. And I think we're going to see him just chew up Ortega's legs. We're going to see him land easy combinations on his chin. Ortega does have a very good chin, so I don't see Yair KOing him or TKOing him. So that's probably his saving grace in this fight. But I think overall, Yair is just a way better fighter. I'm taking him by decision. I think he'll win 49-46. Is that right? Maybe Ortega can win that last and final round after Yair is tired of whooping his ass for 4 rounds. But we move on to the main event, Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval 2. I'm taking Moreno here. This one's kind of an easy pick for me. Maybe Royval can somehow drop and hurt Moreno and finish him off, but Royval only seems to really ever hurt people by doing some crazy spinning elbow, crazy spinning back fist, doing some really unorthodox shit. And Moreno has shown the ability to be hurt by other fighters. Got hurt by Pantoja, got hurt by Figueiredo. Like, Moreno can be hurt at a flyweight, and maybe Royval can somehow mystically channel his inner Bruce Lee and hurt Moreno and then finish him off. That can be a possibility, but when I watch them fight, when I watch Moreno fight Pantoja, and when I watch Royval fight Pantoja, there's a clear difference in the wrestling ability. Like, yeah, they both did get out grappled, but when I watch Moreno do the scrambles with Pantoja, it looks way more competitive. And when Royval was getting in scrambles with Pantoja, he was getting controlled for 5 rounds. Like, Moreno can wrestle. Now, is he on a Pantoja level? But he can take down Figueiredo. He can have control on Figueiredo, whereas Royval just can't do anything, and he just gets controlled by Pantoja and by Moreno probably in this fight. And I think on the feet as well, I think Moreno is just better. Now, Royval does have good cardio. Like, he showed good cardio against Pantoja, and maybe that can be in his favor against Moreno at elevation. But the same can be said for Moreno. Like, both of these guys have good cardio. I just think Royval has a little bit better cardio, but they're on the same level, if I'm being honest with you. And I think Moreno has more wins under his belt. He has better championship experience. He's been champion for a little bit. I think he has better striking, better grappling, better wrestling. Like, I think he just overall is better than Royval. And it's really up to Royval to probably get a fluke first round TKO finish to beat a guy like Moreno. And I'm just not willing to bet on that. I'm taking Moreno by decision. I think he'll clearly beat up Royval. I think he'll show differences and levels in terms of striking and in wrestling. I can see Moreno outputting him on the feet and taking him down and controlling him, probably getting his back at some points. I just overall think that Moreno is a better fighter than Royval, and he is the better Brandon of them too. So my official prediction for this fight is Brandon Moreno to defeat Brandon Royval by decision. I think he'll win 49-46, just like how Yair will beat Brian Ortega. So that is my official full card predictions. Let me know how you feel in the comment section. If you disagree with some picks or if you agree with some picks, let me know how you feel just overall in general. But I'm out of here, guys. Like, subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications. Also, guys, real quick, I do have a topology group. So if you want to join that and keep track of my picks, your picks compete against others, compete against me, you can join that group. Link in the description. But I'm out of here. Like, subscribe, hit that bell icon for notifications. Peace.